Welcome to another episode of The Local Dive. This is your host, Alex Scott, joined by my co-hosts, Ashlyn Portero and Dean and Sarah. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Doing great.
Okay, well, we are excited to jump into another episode. Before we do, we just want to say a quick thank you for those of you who have been sharing the podcast and also leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. That is super helpful, and so we'd encourage you, if you haven't done that, to do that and continue to share this with friends and family as you listen along. We're excited today to jump into an episode talking all about social media. And so as we wade into the shallow end, we want to start with the types of people on social media. And these are caricatures, generalizations of people on social media, and maybe actual people too. But
we love us a generalization.
Yes, so a good generalization. Types of people on social media. Dean, who is your least favorite type of person on social media?
I've got two. One is social media influencer who actually isn't an influencer and is just trying really hard to be that, which is like very dramatic pose pictures and those type of things. And they only have like, I mean, I don't mean this pretentiously, but they have like a few thousand followers.
That was going to be my question, is what's your threshold for like, I need to see this many followers before I think this person is legit?
Well, that's a good question. Let's say 100,000.
Oh, wow.
to be a real influencer.
I'm like, wow, you have 2,000 followers. Why don't you have a blue check mark?
Well, wasn't it funny that
I was like, I'm so not an influencer.
Well, also we need to like re-examine what that word means, because it's like, hi, check out this shirt I found online. That's like, right. And you're an influencer for that.
Well, somebody sent it to me for free.
Yeah.
And then I made a cute post about it.
But isn't it interesting that influencer means just like one very small like genre of things? It's like, here's, a great deal on these floor mats that I found or something like that. It's just kind of weird. And the second one is the what about person on Twitter, where no matter what you tweet, it's like, well, what about this? It's like, Jesus loves you. It's like, well, what about your puppy? It's like, okay, your puppy loves you too. There's just always something, like no matter what. And then a lot of times that's for the person you don't even follow. It's like, if you don't even follow that person on social media, then see a tweet via a retweet or a like or whatever, why are you replying to them? Like, why are you trying to start a fight with somebody you don't follow to begin with? That stuff just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll make a specification in the influencer world. As much as I could sit here and I can totally make fun of that. And I think there's there's a lot of funny aspects of that culture or whatever you want to call it. But I will say I end up taking a lot of my cues on products from people that I follow.
So
and
you're being influenced.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm being influenced.
I take back my statement.
No, but the person the type of social media person that makes my life difficult is the person who doesn't link things. Like if you have 5 Instagram story posts or whatever, panels, whatever, I don't know the words, about here's this thing or this product that I love that revolutionized my life, but then you're just and I have it and it's a secret. It's like, no, I want you to tell me so that I can get it if I want to get it or whatever. So that would be one of mine. And then one of my other ones, and this is a very touchy subject, but multi-level marketing is
it's intense.
It's
Holy
intense.
moly.
And there's a whole we could seriously engage that topic. So what I will say is, my statement on that, I guess, is once you are using your own personal social media for that, in my mind, that is immediately how I start to associate that person's social media. So it's hard to read personal posts or posts about family or things like that, because I just assume that it in some way is going to tie into trying to sell a product. So I start to sort of mentally maybe kind of ignore that person or whatever, which they don't care. It's not like they're, no one's like, oh, Ashlyn didn't approve of my post. I really lose out on something. So I'm not trying to say that as I don't pay attention to them. I just immediately, once I start to see that, I immediately associate pretty much everything that person posts with oh, this is probably selling something or for their business. So take that for what you will. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to make any friends with what my least favorite type of person or type of people on social media is. It's the person who runs the account of their toddler. It's their toddler has a handle and they're posting on behalf of their child.
Yeah.
I'm like, the kid's 3. He's cute. Post him on your account. You can even a hashtag for your kid. I think it's a little extra, but I'm okay with it. Like, you want to be able to find, when they graduate, all the pictures that you've ever posted online, right. Hashtag, insert random description about my kid or their first and middle name or whatever. Like, cool. I can deal with that. The actual handle, it's like, are you grooming them to then take it, are they going to take it over one day? What if your look is different than their look?
How great is like Shirley Temple King? Have you ever seen Shirley Temple King?
This is the guy who does the reviews of Shirley Temple's.
Yeah.
Yes. That kid is funny.
So I'm like, you get a pass because I love that account.
Yeah, but it's, yeah. That's funny.
But I agree with you.
I'm in favor of Shirley Temple King.
And can we stop hashtagging your kids' names while we're at it? No one actually. It's like your wedding hashtag. No one actually goes to that. Except for you and maybe Grandma, who's probably not on Instagram anyways. I just need to get that off my chest. Yeah,
You're entitled to that opinion.
Also, a more serious note, worst Twitter is anonymous Twitter, as in like they have some kind of fake name or no
like
picture.
A bot or something?
That like comes after people with like racist stuff.
Oh, and, like trolls.
Yeah, trolls, yes. but they're always anonymous. You rarely see somebody with their name on it.
Yep. That has got some kind of icon or cartoony picture.
That has any guts to do anything, kind of thing. And a lot of times when I get randomly had people come after me, it's those kind of people, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
What's your favorite follow on social media? It can be any platform, but like what's a social media platform that you're just like, oh man, I'm so thankful for this. Mine, is the Wrestling Pastor. As somebody who loves WWE and also works in ministry, big fan of the Wrestling Pastor account. Just good stuff.
Oh, and shout out to our great friend Josh Revis, yes. Who runs that account and does a great job. He's on a little break right now because the world's gone so social media crazy that he just needed for his own, I guess, soul to take a little breather. But hopefully that will be back pretty soon. You know what I like? This is just so. I'm just gonna surprise people regularly here. I love the mountains. I love the Blue Ridge Parkway. And we try to go a couple times a year. It's kind of our getaway spot. I love following on Instagram different Blue Ridge Parkway photographers.
Oh,
that's
nice.
random. I have probably 10 that I follow on Instagram.
Good
that's
travel,
cool.
Little travel
I just
account.
like it. I just like looking at it, and I just enjoy it. And another thing I follow is the Field of Dreams, like the actual baseball field, Iowa Field site.
Nice.
They have one that I like. That I like too.
Yeah. There's a painter who paints like old baseball, players and teams and things. Greg, can't think of his last name. It's like Kindler or something like that on Instagram. Yeah, he's done some really cool, kind of old timey baseball paintings that are just phenomenal too. So
nice. I really like following National Geographic. I don't know why I laugh. I have to laugh when I say that, but I feel like on Instagram, you just get to see like beautiful photography, of around the world. And I feel like I have learned a lot. Like I've learned a lot about different places and I don't know, just a lot about our world. So I like following National Geographic in like the Christian, maybe evangelical world, maybe a little broader than that. The Rabbit Room is really good.
Oh, nice call. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot about art and creativity and the intersection of kind of faith and those worlds. And so that has been really neat to sort of broaden my horizon in terms of different like artists and musicians and writers and people that I'm familiar with and follow, and just to get to see kind of like that intersection. So that's always like a fun, encouraging, interesting, I don't know. It's a positive follow that I like.
And for personal accounts, like Blue Ridge Parkway kind of things, I would say for Instagram, Thomas West, our church planner in London, he just uses it really well.
Yeah.
So he takes some of the best pictures.
I just don't know how to use it like that. Like mine just look like crap. I use it a lot, but I just don't know how to do all that. I didn't even sit down with me for like 4 hours and just teach me everything he knows.
Got to get your angles right and your composition.
Yep. And then Twitter-wise, Andrew Walker. Andrew and I are really cut from the same cloth theologically. And politically, I just really trust him a lot in terms of views, probably because we share them all. But he's just somebody. I one time heard, I'm complimenting him way too much right now. He's gonna get a huge head for this, but I heard Al Mohler say one time that he would trust Kevin DeYoung with his theological life. That's like Andrew Walker for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's way too nice.
Praise.
He's gonna have my head a massive size after this. But for real though, I really do. So I just really recommend following him because he just has great things. He can have fun too, and he'll mess around and that kind of thing, which I think is important on social media.
Yeah.
To have a sense of humor. But when it comes to like issues and public theology and things such as that, he is fantastic.
That's awesome.
You have any favorite personal follows?
Oh man, my mind just goes blank as always with lists.
Who's your
like,
favorite?
Who do I follow on
Who's
Twitter?
your favorite celebrity follow? Because you brought up like the Bush family and
I did.
the Laurens last episode, and so
I'm caught off guard right now. I honestly don't know.
From a follow, I'm trying to. You like Karen Pryor a lot, don't you? Follow her pretty closely.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
That'd have been bad if you said no. I just threw that out there.
Like,
we would have edited that part of the podcast.
Yeah, Karen Pryor. I guess I should say Dr. Pryor. She's fantastic. She's great. There's a lot of great, I don't know. There's a lot of great followers out there.
I was trying to think of who you like a lot and that type of stuff. Yeah.
I don't know.
Cool. Well, we will transition into the deep dive, and I'm sure some more of these, accounts and things may come out as we jump into this. But really, we want to talk about what the Christian approach to social media should be, and how we as believers should engage with these platforms and think about these things. And so, I think the first question, just to start with and to discuss, is: do we think that social media is important, or is it overrated? Like, is it not real life? Is it pointless? You hear kind of all of these things, it's where life happens. It's not real life. Like, how do we, like just broadly think about it and kind of how we approach using it?
I think that, and I feel like I say this every podcast, I feel like I have to give a disclaimer of like, I have not studied social media and the origins and the impact that it has on our, so let me give all those disclaimers that like, I'm just a random person talking about my views on social media. I'm kind of in a place personally right now where I feel more negative about social media than positive. There are a lot of reasons why I think it doesn't help us sort of almost to your lead-in question, Alex, to help us to really connect with people. I do feel like we're in a place in our society right now, like in America, where we need to be able to have real, honest, personal conversations. And I think I look at what using social media does, I'll just speak for myself, does to me, kind of forming me to just get quick sound bites and to scroll, and so to easily dismiss information. I can just keep scrolling on until I find something that I want to see or that makes me feel good. Like, so I don't know, I could literally talk for this whole podcast about, I'm just reflecting a lot on the ways that social media is not helpful to me, which I think a lot of other people would relate to. I don't want to speak for other people, but I think they're pretty common problems that social media creates. I do think that it is helpful for exposing us to other viewpoints and to people, allows you to hear from people in other ways that maybe you wouldn't. I've tried to think about that. Like, if I got rid of all my social media, the closest thing I could think of would I learn about some of these people who I have, who I have realized are out there and I so love to follow and learn from, would I learn about them in other ways? And I don't know enough about like the status of like the blogging world right now, because that would be sort of maybe the other way that you would hear some of these voices, but maybe before a lot of social media use. And so, but now like Instagram captions and Twitter threads have kind of taken a lot of the place of blogging in some ways. And I'm sure somebody who actually blogs out there could tell me like how those two overlap. So in that sense, all that to say, I think it's helpful to be exposed to people that you otherwise might not come in contact with. And I do think that it can also just at the end of the day be fun, right? Mm-hmm. Like it is just, social, like it is in a good, fun, personable way. So yeah, I don't think that it's pointless, but I'm really concerned at what it is doing to us. And are we able to, I want to say, are we able to handle that? But I don't even know if that's the right question, because we are using it and we are being formed by it. Handle, social media pun. Sorry, that was really lame. But so I don't know. I don't think it's pointless, but I really lately have been reflecting on just a lot of the concerns I have for how I see it shaping me and affecting my own life. And that I think is probably I think that would relate to a lot of people.
I enjoy it. I use it a lot. It doesn't, you might think it would consume a ton of my time, but like I just really quick with it. Like I can fire off, which probably is a problem. I can fire off a tweet really fast, or reply to something like walking down the hallway on the way to the bathroom, something along those lines. So I just work quick. Mm-hmm. My mind just kind of goes that way. and the format isn't like Twitter actually works well with my mind. I'm kind of a one-liner kind of person, my personality, those type of things was kind of like fit for me perfectly. The problem is when it becomes what it was never intended to be, and that's a substitute. At least it shouldn't be intended. Maybe it was intended to be this, but in terms of how it should be for us as believers especially, and that's a substitute for real relationships, or a substitute for actually knowing all the facts. These quick little, opinions we get, or half-truths, or out-of-context things. How many people form their entire opinions about an issue off of one tweet they saw?
Right.
That gets retweeted a ton of times. And so I think that's where it can get us in trouble, is when it causes us to be lazy in terms of really finding out information, or we'll share something or retweet something or whatever, or that maybe or add something to our story, whatever it might be, that isn't actually true, that we haven't researched, haven't looked into, haven't asked people we trusted whether it's legitimate or not, or if we think that that's going to be the medium that changes people. Now, I want people to, I'll share things, I want people to see stuff or think about things, or maybe see this as the pastor of the church if they care what I'm reading or what's on my mind, or or maybe just articles I think would be helpful about a current issue. But if I think that someone's going to change their mind because I linked something, then that's where I'm really missing the boat. And social media becomes something that's actually a bad thing when it could be a good thing. Or when it really occupies my mind, where my mood is dictated by what's going on in social media that day. Now, I don't mean like somber news or something like that, but where I actually get angry because somebody said this or shared this or those type of things. That's where it gets dangerous, where it becomes real life for me. And you asked Alex in the original question, is it real life? And the answer is it's really not. Some of the things are. I love getting sports stuff. I love being connected to people. It keeps me in touch with some of my friends across the country a lot easier. I did those type of things, but group texting does that too. And so I enjoy it for that type of stuff. But where I can see my uniforms for my favorite baseball teams that I think way too much about, those type of things. But I think where it can really get complicated is when we think that what's happening on social media is really what's happening in the world. Like most people, it looks like our country is burning down over the last few weeks. That's not really true. For most people, they're at Trader Joe's and they are at the baseball field and they're, at the park and they're at Chick-fil-A. And doesn't mean there aren't important issues going on, but it looks like that's what's happening right now. Like everybody has this really intense opinion about the president. Everybody, and it's really not that true. And so I think that's one of the things that surprised people so much during the 2016 election was that people thought Twitter was real life. And if Twitter would have been real life, the president would have, our current president would have lost in a landslide. I mean, he might have only won Alabama, if Twitter was real life, but that's just not real life. And that's where we have to be careful, as we can make sure that we don't think that is what is actually framing the real narrative of what's happening in our country on a daily basis.
And it's interesting to think too about that Twitter, well, not just Twitter, social media in general can be a place where I can either go to sort of live out this life that maybe doesn't reflect culture at large, or I can almost go and be an activist in one space and not have that not take into account what is happening outside of my social media timeline. Or I can go to social media, be exposed to different things, or learn about events that are going on. Like, I just think about myself as I don't watch like cable news or really any, like I don't really, to be honest, watch like Fox and CNN. I read headlines, I don't have cable, and so I just really don't consume a lot of like television news, or I mean really hardly any at all. And so I could go to social media and find information, and we can also argue about like the trustworthiness now of media too, but I'm not guaranteed to be made a more informed person, because in that same medium, I can then go and escape, right? Like I can, in one platform, I can read news headlines and I can read recipes and I can read a tweet from one of my family members. That's just, a personal funny thing. Like that blows my mind. And so I think but to your point, Dean, I think because of the diversity of types of communications and interactions we have in social media platforms, it's easy for us to kind of think this is where life happens, because all of these different things are happening where outside of social media, those would all just be different types of experiences or personal interactions that I would have, but it's not the same. It's sort of this simulated experience of real life. And so that's just I think that's really a fascinating aspect to me of what social media is and what it allows us to take part in.
Yeah, and if you just want to use it for fun, and that is it. I mean, like, you just want to use it for sports or memes or just to keep in touch with your friends, then it's okay to customize it where it is just your little world and universe.
Yeah, you have control over it.
If it's only for that. So, like, if you're just trying to use it for fun, then don't let it become a thing that wears you out and that gets you mad. Just follow your friends. you know, follow your favorite sports teams and your favorite restaurants and your city or, you know, those type of things. But if you're going to use it as a place of truth, you're in big trouble. Mm-hmm. You know, then you need to have more diversity of opinion because it really is an echo chamber. I mean, the amount of things every day we see that are just dishonest on there, you know, from both sides of the political spectrum and everywhere in between. It's unbelievable. But how many people, I think about how many people in our church, you know, they form, I do it too. How many of us form our opinions on major things or even minor things based on a short snippet of a tweet from somebody that we don't even know. And that's where it can be really complicated.
Yeah, I think for me, like, one of the things that's the way that I use it, Ashton, to your point, I don't really sit down and watch a lot of TV or cable news or, you know, things like that. I use Twitter in a sense as my news outlet to have an idea of sort of a pulse of what's going on in the world. Mm-hmm. And really, like, the kind of trending function there is helpful for me because if I just looked at who I followed, it wouldn't necessarily maybe paint an accurate picture. And so for me, it's really helpful to know, like, certain things that are going on that Twitter and other social media platforms give us the opportunity to know and to hear about. At the same time, Dean, to your point, like, you can curate, you know, your page, your platform, your whatever, you know, your followers to be something that is so insular that you think that it is the real world. And so, I mean, in some sense it is, because generally speaking, behind all of these, you know, pictures and avatars and Twitter handles and things like that, like, is a person. And so there is some good that can be done. And there is, you know, there are people that are expressing these views, and you can have conversation and dialogue sort of on, you know, on these mediums. But you can also make it to where, like, you think everybody thinks exactly the same way that you do. And then you're like, wait a second, this isn't what you actually believe, whatever the opposite of, you know, my point of view is. And so it's very easily, you're very easily able to kind of warp your worldview into something that looks and, you know, sees the world the exact same way that you do. And so I think there's just some danger in there. And so it is important for exposure and for knowing what's going on, but it can be pointless and it can be overrated, and it may not always be real life either. And so it's just a matter of knowing kind of, okay, sometimes I need to pull back and I need to look at a tweet for a headline, and then I actually need to go read a longer form article to get informed on this thing or, you know, that event or whatever.
Yeah, and if you think it's real life, you're going to find yourself being disappointed with people because you're going to expect people to speak to everything. Mm-hmm. Like, and if someone hasn't spoken to some issue going on, the conclusion is going to be they don't care, they're out of touch. It's like, well, maybe they just haven't tweeted about it. Yeah. Maybe they're really in touch. Like, and just to be for perspective, how few of Americans actually use it. Yeah. The percentages is not very high. Like, if we today made an announcement to our church just on Twitter, and that was it, and the amount of people who would know that announcement is very minimal.
Right.
It's very minimal. Same with Instagram, be very generational oftentimes who knew that. Yep. Facebook, too, very generational, because a lot of people now who are using Instagram, they have Facebooks, but they rarely even go to it. Yeah. You know, they can't even tell you the last time. Maybe they check really, really quick sometimes. So
and then you think about the algorithms and how things get, and so really you can't, to your point, you can't count on, well, I posted this on one of my social media platforms, so
everybody should have seen it,
right,
or knows it or whatever. Yeah.
It's also interesting how much, like, glorification of personality happens on social media. And so I think about, and I'm mostly, because I do use social media to try to learn that, you know, I'm not just on there. My Instagram feed would not confirm this, but I'm not just on there to, like, post pictures of my dog and my house and the places that I travel.
Shout out to Rainey.
Yeah. And that's, as I, like, criticize all the Instagram influencers, I'm like, I haven't posted in, like, you know, a couple months, and it's one of 4 categories. And so I'm like the most boring person.
London, Rainey, book.
Greenway.
Yeah, Greenway. Yeah, 5 categories. I mean, so granted, I'm, you know, let me just go ahead and say I'm like a really boring social media user, but I think about if I was, if I'm relying on social media to try to really gain understanding around a certain topic, how dangerous that is, because you think of, okay, if I got a book, if I read a book on a certain topic and then I went to the bibliography of that book and I looked at the different sources and maybe I went and read some of those and then that would lead me to more. Like, that's one way to learn about what has been written on this topic, what has been said, versus let me scroll through my Twitter timeline or my Instagram feed and see what 5 or 6 different people have said about this topic. And at the end of the day, I'll probably just end up adopting whatever view. If I see, I think that's another thing too, is like, if we see, oh, well, so-and-so said this about this topic, they're trustworthy, I'm just going to go with that. I think we just always have to have, there are people that we say, okay, to your point about Andrew, I can trust his thoughts. He's a thoughtful person, and he, is trying to be winsome, and, and all this, but you know him personally too. You trust his character. Yes. And his, where he stands, and he's also a brother in Christ. And so I think that's very different than, this person whose personality I'm attracted to, or who represents something that maybe I aspire to be, has taken this position. And so I'm going to share that so that I can kind of associate myself with that person. So I guess that's my random rant, just to say that we really have to be so discerning with what we consume, who we agree with or don't agree with. And also sometimes be open to the fact that we might learn things from people who we normally wouldn't associate with. It can work both ways, but you can't take, Dean, I think you kind of just said it best. Like, you can't take your truth from social media.
Yeah, and if your goal is gotcha or zing, you're not going to do the work of seeing if this is legitimate or not, because all you want to do is just show that you're right. So when I share stuff, is I want to do things. Again, I have fun with it too. I'll mess with somebody, give somebody a hard time. You're just kind of joking around. I think it's important to not take yourself seriously on there. Yeah. But also I'll use it to maybe point out things I want people that follow me to be aware of, or like, be careful of this, this kind of, branch of Christianity that I think is dangerous, or just promote or be excited about something like our church, or, things like that, or to encourage a church planter, things like that. Or maybe if I just want to, like, maybe show what I'm thinking about something that I think, because of my position, maybe some people that know me might care. They might not either, so I think it's just all what you think the point of it is. And I think so much of it comes down to not taking yourself so seriously, but taking God and taking truth seriously.
What should the Christian approach or posture to social media be?
Oh, my first thing comes to mind is do nothing. When I delete a tweet, it's usually because I read it and go, man, that could probably do some damage to somebody who's not a Christian, who doesn't have the context and doesn't know my spirit behind this. Or maybe I was just being a punk, and it's not worth it. So I think that, is it worth it? So when I delete a tweet, it's usually not because I had a typo, which that does happen a lot. Usually it's because I read it again. I went, ooh, if an unbeliever read that, I think it could really be damaging to my credibility with them, or they're going to see me as something else before they see me as a Christian. I'm careful what I tweet about Florida State football, being a Miami Hurricane fan.
Yeah.
You said to be
in
careful,
this town.
That something as just basic as that could really
get ostracized.
Could really, it's not worth it. So if I do tweet something, it'll be something more fun, about, or I'll have just a random picture go up and me in a Miami shirt, my boys at a game or something like that, without much comment.
Yeah. As I think about it too, and Ashlyn, I think you said this early on, that there's this tendency sometimes, and I've noticed this in my own use of social media, is that we have this tendency to be formed and really discipled by the world because of the way that, that we're interacting with social media. And so I think that's just a regular heart kind of check and heart question we have to ask. Dean, you said, if it's affecting your mood, or, those are all things that I think we have to be mindful of as Christians, because, like, at the end of the day, we don't have to have social media. You can exist and you can be a faithful follower of Christ, and you can be a great, friend and great husband or wife or mom or dad or whatever without being on social media. It's completely possible. And so if it is like where, either you're finding your identity more in your likes and your follows than you are in Christ, or that, maybe it's, I think something that I've seen in sometimes myself and in other people and talking about it is like there's this lack of contentment that kind of can be very easily brewed by Instagram, because somebody that I follow is on vacation every time I go on Instagram. And so I'm like, in my mind, I see regularly these pictures of people at the beach or in the mountains or doing this or doing that. And I'm like, man, like, why am I not on vacation? I want to go on vacation. And it's like, well, they've only gone on vacation once this year. You just saw the 87 other people that were on vacation. And so there's this, there's these things that stir up in you that are just not healthy, and they're really not of the Lord. I mean, Paul in Philippians 4 says, like, I've learned to be content in whatever situation. And oftentimes when I scroll Instagram, I'm like, oh, I want that. Oh, that would be nice. Oh, that's pretty cool. And so, there's just this unhealthy kind of emotion and thought that gets stirred up in that. And so I think we have to guard ourselves against that, and then really just kind of continue to root ourselves in things that matter, in local relationship where we're known. And
yeah. And then if we are struggling with contentment on those type of things, we make it that person's problem rather than ours, where it's great to post pictures of your vacation. That's like half the point of Instagram, right? Because like, here's our family picture, and we had a great time. We want to share with you that we've been to the Grand Canyon or Ireland or the beach or wherever. And then it's an us problem.
Yeah.
And if you really struggle that much with contentment issues, which is a real thing with Instagram, it's a real thing, then we would probably tell someone that has a struggle with alcoholism to stay away from the bar. At the same time, like, if you really struggle with that, why do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
Why camp out there? Find something else to occupy your time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, conduct yourselves honorably. And, so for the Christian, I think very simple, practical things, how you dress in what, if you're like for pictures, and I mean, probably not speaking just to women, but especially to women, how do you, and that's a tough one, because it's like, how do you present yourself, and not in a way that's false or trying to craft some image of yourself, but that is what so much of social media has become, is what type of image do I portray to the world. And so when I think about people who I am not just indifferent about, but actually enjoy seeing their, what they curate, I guess, on social media, it's usually people who have done a really great job of putting out content that speaks to who they are as a person, like the good and the bad. And I don't know, I could go on and on about that, but yeah, I mean, I think just, there's a way, I think, to pursue holiness even in social media, but I even say that with like fear and trembling, that you could step half an inch into the world of using social media and already be compromised in your pursuit of holiness. And so I don't know, I think about that for myself, like how often, usually what I've started doing lately is when I go to post something, and Dean, I think that you made the good point that we also don't want to take ourselves too seriously. So sometimes I can tend to like overthink things, but sometimes I'll go to post something, and in my mind, I'm like, am I posting this because it is fun and I just want to share it with people? Or do I want people to think I'm awesome? Like, do I want people to see first, wow, look, she did that, or she has that, or that's, something about me? Or is it about me just sharing something, a fun part of my life? I just think that line can get blurry. And so I don't want us to overthink things, but I think the more that we grow in Christ likeness, we, hopefully you are going to feel the Holy Spirit's going to convict you over times that you shouldn't post, or what you should or shouldn't post, or how you look in a post, or whatever. All of these different types of content, we should grow more discerning, and just start to feel that out. The more that you, the more that the Holy Spirit does work in your life, hopefully He's guiding you to use social media in a wholesome way. But yeah, I do think that almost to your point, Alex, that if we're not careful, we will be discipled by the world, and those lines are just so blurry. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much. But at the same time, I think we feel such a great fear of missing out. Like, if I'm not on social media, am I not contributing to the conversation in a way that could be helpful? Am I not reaching people by being on social media? Those are all things that we think about too, as church leaders, as individuals. And at the end of the day, I don't know. I think we have to trust the Lord with that, that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So as a Christian, I never want someone to look at something I post and their reaction be, good grief, get over yourself. Mm-hmm. Or wow, he's really impressed with himself, or he thinks he's a big deal. Or that was when my book came out. Is that humble brag? when my
I never want someone. Speaking of.
Available on Amazon.
Links included in show notes.
When my book came out, that was something I was really insecure about. Was not over self-promoting. So I made sure when people tweeted about my book, I just wrote back thank you, or rather than retweeting it, or I just try to be really careful about that. I'll share on Instagram sometimes. Someone says they're reading it. But if it's like a compliment, like this is the greatest book I've ever read or something like that, which I think my mom just said that, but no one else. But this, I just be really careful. I'm just almost like have a complex about that. And another thing with social media is I don't want to use it to overcompensate for something else. Like sometimes you'll see the mom who's just overkill with posts about kids, rather than just like, hey, here's our family. This was fun today, but just overkill. Your mind goes to like, oh, she's got a lot of mom guilt about something. Right, or something along those lines, or the person who's overkill with gym pictures, in terms of their workouts and things like that. It's just like, what? I don't mean someone has a business. It's like, hey, I do personal training online or something like that. But just like always over and over, you just kind of go, okay, what's going on? Like, what's really happening here that makes them have to, or tons of, just selfies looking perfect and things like that. It's like, okay, like what's deeper going on that makes them feel like they have to do this? But it also can be intoxicating because what's all the comments? So gorgeous. Dying, OMG, love this, you look beautiful. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that, right? Yeah. Right. So we just have to be careful what's going on with our hearts when we're doing those kind of things. Just really matters.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you are coming to social media to feed an insecurity, that's going to be a slow death that you're going to die.
And the hard part is the self-realization that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Because no one thinks that's them.
Right.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And the Lord can be good in that too. I mean, I think he can, he can use that, but man, that's hard.
Yeah. We're touching on this a little bit too, but what are some ways that you've seen either maybe in your own life or in, as we've ministered to people, like the negative effects of social media, the way that kind of has a tendency to harm our soul? I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit, just like contentment, identity. Are there other ways that, either we should warn people against kind of in how they engage with social media or?
Yeah, I think for me is when I get angry about something, I'm like, dude, it's just a tweet. I have my Twitter bio. These are just tweets. Settle down. And I want to live that myself. Mm-hmm. So like something makes me angry, especially somebody I don't know. That's the dumbest thing. When I get worked up about something like that. I think the other thing that can happen is when it creates hysteria in you, when it just elevates stuff to a level that it just does not need to get to. Over just like one issue happening, and you're just like all of a sudden going bananas and expect everybody else to, and you're like at a 10 on a scale from 1 to 10, for in terms of being extra about something. I think it can really do that, especially when you think it's real life, and all you see is everybody going hysterical over something, and then you're going to be disappointed in those who aren't going hysterical over something. And your conclusion is going to be that you're going to judge their heart. They don't care, they don't know, things like that. Or maybe they have a different view, which they might not even have a different view.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we saw that, just recently with COVID, so we're inundated with terrible images of, Italy and New York City and these places where it was really bad. And lots of people are and were really sick. And I'm not at all making light or taking lightly the impact that pandemic had in those cities and across the globe. But there's a tendency sometimes to think there's, 200,000 people who have it in New York, and then I'm sitting in a town, where like 0.1% of people have tested positive. And so if I'm paranoid and in fear because of what I've seen in New York City, not cautious and concerned and, approaching things in a respectful and appropriate way, then but it's like I'm inundated by this disease that's everywhere. And in the reality, it's, I need to be aware of it. I need to be cautious, but like, it's not that present here. And so, I think we can see the worst of everything at times with social media. You can see every bad thing that happened. In some ways that's good. But it also can lead you to believe that certain things are way worse than they actually are.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so there's this tendency, I don't know, to forget sometimes. I mean, as I look at social media, I have a tendency sometimes to forget that the Lord is still on the throne, ruling and reigning, because it feels like there's chaos everywhere. And so sometimes just that reminder to sit back and go, okay, first of all, God is in control. None of this is surprising him. And most of this, like, it's important. I need to maybe think about some things. I need to have positions about some of these things. But at the end of the day, like, they're not all impacting my life or the lives of anyone around me or that I'm doing ministry with. And so, you know, I don't have to have an opinion or a statement or a whatever about every single thing that's out there. That's the issue of the day, because tomorrow something else will be more hysterical than whatever it is today. And it's like, you can't keep up. And so I just think it's impossible to.
That's well said.
As we, you know, one of the things too, like, social media provides a lot of opportunities. You know, Dean, I know this is something that you've done really well. You know, how can you move relationships and connections that, you know, from social media to real life and make those kind of meaningful and impactful friendships and conversations?
I think you have fun with it. You know, you have some people you just enjoy kind of going back and forth with. And I legitimately have friends that I think I met via Twitter, like a lot of pastor friends, especially that I met that way. And it's just fun, you know, so I think you just follow up on it. So if you know that you're going to be somewhere where one of your Twitter buddies that you like, legit, like, you like communicate a lot, you joke around, talk about fun things that you enjoy, or maybe just a fellow peer, like someone who's a pastor, then we'll meet up. So it's not uncommon for me to go speak somewhere, and I'll like tweet that I'm going to wherever, and someone will send me a message that I know from Twitter and go, wow, you're going to be in town, fun. Like, can we get coffee? You know, that kind of thing. I'm like, yes, absolutely. You know, those type of things. So I think the more you can turn online friendships into in-person friendships, the better. And then that leads also for maybe somebody that maybe want to talk about something kind of off the main platform of Twitter. And if somebody sends me a direct message about something that I know and I trust and I'm friends with, it's via Twitter, and then I'll just go, hey man, just text me. I'll give my number. So then now we text each other randomly about different kind of things. Anytime, I think the key is moving away from that platform to be in other actually areas, like texting especially, is just helpful.
That's good. What are some other ways, you know, that social media encourages you?
I do think that, again, almost just going back to exposing you to, like, I think different things happening in the church. And,
yeah, definitely.
You know, I mean, my mind immediately goes to seeing a lot of great missions work and global missions work that is happening, or maybe a new network gets started, or, you know, whatever it is. I think there are a lot of great things to celebrate that you maybe wouldn't otherwise know about. Now, I think the challenge is that sometimes you might learn about those things from gatherings, and so it is important that we still continue to interact and interface with people in real life. But I think that social media can be a great place to raise awareness, to celebrate things that are happening, to connect with people, and so that encourages me. Yeah.
I think content too, just like sharing articles and book recommendations, a lot of like the really good things that I've come across that actually helps me with sermons and things like that, and like power quotes. I'll see somebody, you know, tweet something from a quote, you know, a famous pastor or theologian, or just themselves, or their, you know, childhood pastor, or their dad, or whoever it might be. And a lot of times I'll copy and paste that thing really quick and put it in a file, you know, and save it and use it as a quote in a sermon. I a lot of the quotes in my book were tweets, you know, things like that. When I quoted people, I first saw them online, then allowed me to research them further and see where that came from, like the actual article and the context. I love it for that kind of stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
And sports.
I was going to say sports is a big one. I mean, that's like, you know, how I think I stay half the time in, you know, aware of what's going on.
Yeah, here's an example. So the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls. I tweeted just randomly, who wants to do a group text? Josh Revitz gave me the idea, actually. I said, who wants to do a group text during Jordan? I said, if so, you know, send me a message. People like started replying to me. I got all their numbers, made a group text. It was so much fun. I had strangers on there that I'd never met before. They followed me on Twitter. Most of them were pastors. And we were in this big, huge group text. I think there's 20 people on it, something like that, talking about Jordan during the thing. It was great. You know, there's things like that you can just make fun, sports-wise and otherwise.
Yeah. And I'm thankful for the opportunity, too, to continue to stay connected to friends that, like, I text some, like, especially like I've got a couple close friends from high school that if it wasn't for Facebook, like, their Christmas card would be like the only update I see of their kids growing. And just because our life, like we text, we might talk on the phone once a year or something, but like it's cool to see their life kind of progress, and continue in ways that, 20 years ago would have never been an option. And so I'm encouraged by that and grateful for that and the ability to maintain those relationships.
People saying, hey, here's my grandkids. I'm proud of this. A lot of people keep in touch. The high school reunions are coordinated now on Facebook and things like that.
Yeah. Any last minute thoughts, tips, favorite follows, people you don't like on Twitter, on social media in general? Just any last parting comments before we
far left and far right loonies.
Yeah,
equal. That's a good one.
The lurker kind of bugs me, actually, like the person who just like hangs out in the background. I'm like, just comment every now and again.
Person who passively aggressively, is that a word, likes tweets, like replies, I mean. So let's say you and I are like debating something that's a little intense, and then like they side with your view, so they like your tweet. I'm like, get out of here, man! Like, what are you trying to say? That kind of stuff happens a lot in political discussions, things like that. I'm like, get out of here, dude. Wait, you showed us, like, oh, you like, it's like, get out of here, man. So what I do is I might reply to that person and do a wave emoji, like hi, and they do that. I love messing with people and doing stuff like that.
That's funny.
Good times.
Also SEC guy on Twitter that thinks the SEC, like that Vanderbilt would go 12-0 in the Big 12 or something like that. I can't do that guy.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that one. And any parting thoughts?
No, I mean, I just think paying attention to how we use it, why we use it, what using social media does to us, all of those things, it's just really important to think through and have fun with it too. I do think that that's important. I'm sort of like in the curmudgeon stage right now about social media, so it's hard for me to think of a lot of redemptive things right now, but that doesn't mean, and I don't mean to sound like it's all relative, but I am glad for people who use it and get a lot of joy out of it, and it's helpful to them, maybe like through, there are people who run their business off of social media, and that's great, so not the MLMs, but I'm just kidding. Kidding kind of, but so I'm not trying to dump on it, but I just think that as long as we're being wise and not letting it be the end all be all, then that's a good thing.
Mute, block, hide stories, do those kind of things.
Unfollow.
That
is like one of the most. It's one of the best feelings for me. I'm like, who do I want to unfollow today?
Yeah, people I know that just are they're so like out there self promotion or I just can't handle it. Just why do that to yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's been a fun conversation on social media. You can follow us and join the conversation at The Local Dive on Instagram, or The Local Dive Pod. Sorry, I don't even know our handle on Instagram and Twitter. We'd love to continue the conversation there. As we wrap up this episode, we're going to dive into the Local on Tap section, where
Tallahassee.
We are going to talk local Tallahassee, and we will go with today favorite famous, like in real life famous, not social media influencer famous, favorite famous Tallahassean.
Ooh, I got a couple.
Okay.
Well, famous Amos used to live in Tallahassee.
Famous is in the name.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The cookie guy used to live in Tallahassee. That's a fact.
What is his name?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Famous Amos. I don't know.
I'm going to look. I'm a resident Googler, so I'm going to look it up right now.
And then also, I'm a big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And longtime wrestling manager. She was called the first lady of wrestling, I believe, at the time. Miss Elizabeth was called that too. But Missy Hyatt, who was a manager in World Class, and she's also in NWA, then WCW. Then she did some announcing as well. She did like Starcades and Great American Bash and Clash of Champions. She lives in Tallahassee.
Really?
I've never actually seen her, but she lives in Tallahassee. That is a fact. And another random one is in A Christmas Vacation, the Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
The guy who was Cousin Eddie's son. I forget his name.
Yes.
He lives,
Rusty?
Yeah. He lives in Killarn Lakes.
That's crazy.
Wow.
He lives here in town. Yeah, a little random.
That's hilarious.
Random fact. So that's my quick. And also I think y'all, I'm guessing, will mention some very prestigious Leon High School graduates. So I'll let you guys go ahead and do that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll provide us some information. Wallace Wally Amos is the creator of Famous Amos Cookies. He was born in Tallahassee, Florida. in 1936 and then moved away in 1948. But this seems like it was his hometown. So there you go. That's my source is Wikipedia. Cite my source.
So it may or may not be accurate, but
right.
We'll
yeah, someone could have edited it like 20 minutes ago. But I was gonna say when I was like prepping for this, I was gonna say Tony Hale just because he's probably like one of the most famous people.
Leon High School graduate.
There you go. I honestly have never seen any of the shows that he's been in. So instead of that, I Googled famous people from like notable Tallahasseans. I would like to share that at least 2 NASA astronauts are from Tallahassee, which is pretty.
Norm Thagard.
Yeah, he's one of them. And I forgot the other guy's name. So
I played high school football with his son.
There you go. I guess that's there's some buildings I think around town, or Thagard Health Center at FSU maybe. Yeah, there's things named after him. So I thought that was interesting. Also, I totally was not embracing my like literary identity or whatever you want to call that. My bookworm vibes. Michael and Jeff Shera.
Oh, Civil War. Yeah.
And
Jeff's Leon grad.
Yeah. And I think did Jeff win a Pulitzer Prize or Michael? I think it was Michael Shera. Whoever wrote Killer Angels.
Yeah, that's the dad. The dad wrote Killer Angels.
Okay.
And then, and I think the other one wrote Gods and Generals, maybe.
Again, I'm going to look this up. Yeah, man, I'm just so, like, not prepared for this.
Cheryl Hines, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes, I was going to say Cheryl Hines is definitely my favorite because Curb Your Enthusiasm, I was ashamed to say that as one of my top 3 favorite shows last week because I felt like I would have been kind of harshly judged for that because it's like
I've never seen it.
It's like Seinfeld with an R rating or whatever. But yeah, Cheryl Hines is definitely up there. And then I feel like we can't neglect current manager of Dan Darling's Chicago Cubs.
Pretty big deal.
David
Ross.
There you go. Seen him in Starbucks before.
Winthrop Park alumnus, played Little League Baseball there. Also, let's not forget another Leon High School graduate, iconic female actress, Faye Dunaway.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big one as well. Matt Tharp, the owner of Tharp Construction. I don't know if you all have heard of him before, but I want to include him on there as a famous Tallahassee resident.
Yes, indeed. Well, any other last famous people we want to throw in there?
That was a pretty good list. Oh, George Clinton.
Oh yes,
Funkadelics.
Oh yeah,
lives in Tallahassee. Let's not forget George.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely
iconic.
Gotta musician. And then a lot of athletes and things like that. But that's too easy to do. So minus Ross.
Well, we appreciate you listening to another episode of The Local Dive. We will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Local Dive, a podcast diving into deep and shallow musings about Christ, the church, and culture. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow The Local Dive on social media and continue the conversation with us on Instagram and Twitter at The Local Dive Pod.